and Eastern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Rounds of strong to severe storms are possible later tonight, but mainly tomorrow across Kentucky. We've declared a severe weather alert day. Meteorologist Evan Hatter has more on what to expect. Evan.
Already some rowdy weather, Steve, to our south and west. A severe thunderstorm watch already in effect, not for any of our counties, but just a couple of counties to the west. And we're now starting to see some strong to severe thunderstorms break out in that region as well. Outside at the moment, around the region, it's all quiet. Clouds continue to increase. Our I-64 camera at Moorhead bears that out for you. As we head towards the Mountain Parkway at Slade, excuse me, again, we're seeing a little bit of that sunshine, but also those clouds seeing that filtered sunshine as well. Temperatures upper 70s and low 80s around the mountains right now. It is a warm one out there on our Thursday afternoon. Pinpoint Doppler, it's quiet around the mountains right now, but we look out to the west and we already see strong to severe thunderstorms out right now. Severe thunderstorm warnings in effect just east of the Bowling Green area as you head towards Glasgow, coming down very shortly, coming down the Cumberland Parkway there. We'll have to watch that storm and all of these storms as they continue to push on to the east later on tonight. They could have a punch with them, but our severe weather alert day is mainly for tomorrow. It's this whole mess you see out to the west, and that's going to scoot on in as we head into the daytime hours tomorrow. So keep that WYMT weather app handy. You are going to need it. And all you have to do is scan that code in the upper right-hand part of your screen. You'll get our latest forecast, the latest radar imagery, and when alerts are issued, they come right to your phone, right in the palm of your hand. I'll have the latest timing and impacts. Your weather threat tomorrow coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thank you. A Southern Kentucky entertainment venue and what many are calling a landmark has closed. The 27 Twin DriveIn will not be opening this summer. The family-run business had been open since the late 1960s. WYMT's Phil Pendleton spoke to the owner on why it's closing and has reaction from folks who say going to the movies will never be the same.
For more than 50 years, the 27 Drive-In was much more than simply just a place to go see a movie.
It was an experience, and it's just it was wholesome family fun, and it's something that everyone could be a part of.
That won't be the case this summer. The owner says she had to make the difficult decision not to reopen.
So the first thing that popped into my mind was just shock and sadness. We had made so many good memories there.
Owner Brenda Roden tells me that she appreciates what this community has done for them over the decades the drive-in has been in operation. She says she did not do this to make the public mad. She simply did it for her health. Roden says she worked at drive-ins ever since she was 15, but times have changed. And while it has been their livelihood, she says the combination of many factors damaged the viability of the operation.
It just made Somerset a special place to live, and so without it, it's just not going to seem as special anymore.
Few drive-ins are left throughout Kentucky. According to driveinmovie.com, there's only 7 drive-ins open in the entire state.
We had so many good memories there, I just can't even name one, because it's just every time was a good time. You were never disappointed.
In Pulaski County, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
The owner tells us she has not made any definite decisions on what the future may hold, but she will still maintain the drive-in grounds. Productivity for U.S. workers and businesses dropped 7.5% in the first quarter of 2022. It's the biggest decline since 1947. Thursday, the U.S. Labor Department released new data that also reported an 11.6% increase in labor costs. That is a measure of how much businesses pays its workers. It's the biggest jump for labor costs since the summer of 2020. The number reveals how competition for workers has pushed up wages. They also reflect ongoing supply chain shortages. At the same time, the Federal Reserve is trying to drive down inflation by raising interest rates. Mortgage rates hit their highest level since 2009 this week. The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged 5.27% this week, up from 5.1% last week. It's well above the 2.96% average from this time last year. The upward trend has pushed rates more than 2 percentage points higher this year. That's the fastest pace in decades. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve, hoping to curb inflation, announced earlier this week it would raise the federal funds rate by 0.5 percentage point. That's the biggest jump since 2000. Ukrainian forces continue to hold on in the southern port city of Mariupol, denying Russia's attempt to completely capture the city. And now Ukraine's president is asking the UN to help the wounded who are trapped under constant Russian attack. CBS's Bradley Blackburn reports from the United Nations.
The battle for Mariupol is not over yet. Russian forces are bombarding the steel plant where Ukrainian troops are still holding on. Ukraine's foreign minister says Russia is not interested in negotiating.
If you prefer talks to war, you do not besiege Azovstal and shell them 24 hours per day.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says many civilians and wounded forces remain in the plant, and some will need to be dug out from underground bunkers by hand.
The United Nations is now assisting with evacuation efforts in Mariupol and working with the International Red Cross to get another evacuation convoy there by Friday.
Some women, children, and the elderly made it to Ukrainian safe zones before Ukrainian officials say Russia violated the promise of a ceasefire.
We do hope that this operation will continue and that we will be able to evacuate other numbers of civilians.
A European official tells CBS News Russian forces have not progressed very far on the ground in Ukraine, ahead of May 9th Victory Day celebrations, which mark the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
First Lady Jill Biden is traveling to Romania and Slovakia to highlight the U.S. commitment to Ukrainian refugees and soldiers over the Mother's Day weekend. With drug overdoses skyrocketing, states and the federal government are looking for new ways to tackle the crisis. Drug overdose deaths surpassed 100,000 during the 12 months ending in April 2021. That's up more than 28% from the year before. Synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl, are among the biggest causes. Customs and Border Protection says most fentanyl arrives in the U.S. through ports of entry along the southwest border in cars and commercial trucks. The problem is growing larger every day. Passengers from a Carnival cruise ship are in quarantine in Seattle after a COVID outbreak. Carnival won't say how many travelers aboard the Spirit were infected. They were moved into isolation in local hotels after the ship docked in Seattle on Tuesday. This happened just days after Carnival reactivated its entire fleet, which had shut down when the pandemic began. CBS's Nikki Batiste has one passenger's reaction.
Overwhelmed at sea. That's how some passengers aboard Carnival's Spirit cruise ship describe staff upon learning of a COVID outbreak.
I've been on 7 cruises since August. And of course, COVID is always a concern.
Darren Seifertson was among those who tested positive.
I literally stayed in this room for 6 days with no telephone service. They wouldn't answer the phone.
Seifertson says his travel companion and roommate stayed with him in the room despite testing negative, and that a list of passengers' names and cabin numbers of those who had contracted the virus was posted near elevators. The outbreak occurred during the ship's voyage between Miami, where it departed last month, and Seattle, where it arrived on Tuesday. Upon docking, all infected passengers were moved to local hotels for isolation. Carnival refused to say how many of its approximately 2,100 passengers tested positive, but insists travelers were vaccinated and tested before boarding. And in a statement to CBS News said in part, our health and safety protocols exceed CDC guidelines, and additional measures were implemented during the voyage. But that brings little comfort to passengers like Seifertson.
Unfortunately, this ship was so unprepared and so mismanaged that many of us suffered greatly.
Nikki Batiste, CBS News, New York.
Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, we'll have tips on the best deals this month on everything from furniture to clothing.
And showers and thunderstorms are back in the forecast as soon as later tonight. The very latest details are coming up next.
WYMT News app offers alerts on breaking stories as they happen, customized to the categories you choose.